We live!
Yeah, I would just like to start off by expressing my profound relief at the fact that the Bills won last night, because if they didn't, I know that we would have a very unhappy co-host.
Yeah.
But they pulled it out, so
Yeah, we'll see if it's Bills Chiefs or Bills Browns. We'll find out after the webinar.
well, I could go for a battle of I-90.
It's the Battle of Lake Erie.
Yeah, that too.
Well, there are multiple team pairings that could be a battle of I-90.
That is true too. Yeah.
Yep. Or the Battle of US 20.
That would cut the Seahawks out.
Well,
Right.
the Seahawks are out of the playoffs, so
Right. I'm talking strictly theoretically.
right. It would also cut out the Patriots because they play in Foxborough, not in Boston.
And all right, but I-90 goes to Foxborough just as much as US 20 does.
True. No, I was thinking Bills, Browns, and you can say even the Bears would qualify for both.
Yeah, no, the Bears would qualify for both.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing today? It is Sunday, and what else do you have on your schedule today other than hanging out with us for a little while, talking about bridges? So this is a series that, as 2020 wore on, I was thinking more and more about putting together as a webinar series. There would absolutely be no way to do this all in one episode, so I came up with this three-part series on bridges of the Delaware River. And over the next 3 episodes, we're going to be profiling every single road and pedestrian bridge that crosses the river between upstate New York and the Atlantic Ocean. I think there's over 40 of them altogether, so buckle up, folks. The next 3 Sundays are going to be chock full of Delaware River bridges, and we're going to walk you through each of them and try to give you some pointers and historical information about each one that maybe you did or didn't know before. So, really looking forward to this. So let's get into it. Let's meet our... Who's on Skype today? Oh, Doug from Gribble Nation is on Skype today. Hi, Doug.
Hello, and I'm happy to be here
I hope so.
on Gribble Nation's 20th anniversary.
Yeah, we have a birthday this week, right?
Yeah, break out your party makers.
Party hats and noisemakers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Gribble Nation. Yeah. Maybe we'll be able to squeeze in a word or two about that as the program goes along.
Yeah.
Anthony is joining us also from beautiful Stamford, Connecticut. Hi, Anthony.
Hi, everybody.
Yep. Anthony is good enough to give us a couple hours of his time on this Sunday. So that's our panel.
Yep. And speaking of Stamford, it should be known that the west branch of the Delaware River starts in Stamford, New York.
Yeah, that other Stamford.
Wrong
Yes.
Stamford.
Well, it's the right Stamford for the Delaware River.
Yes.
Okay. So here's a map of the Delaware River to kick us off. I'll walk you through real quick what we have in front of us for the next 3 weeks. So we're going to start this week all the way up at the north end here, and everything you see in yellow. We have the east and west branches in upstate New York, the mainline river that begins in Hancock, and we'll follow that down to Port Jervis this week. Next week, we'll pick up from Port Jervis and cover this section of the river down through northern and western New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania. And then our third and final episode will pick up from Trenton and take us through Philadelphia Metro and Delaware, all the way out to the Atlantic Ocean. So that's our roadmap for the next 3 weeks. So week 1, episode 1, will be up in this part of the river here. That's the area that we're going to focus on today. Okay?
In this map of the entire watershed here. You know, as a kid, I always thought watershed was a funny word. It's like, there's a shed full of water.
Yeah. Like, where do you need a bigger shed for all this water?
Yeah.
Don't you store water in tanks? Why is there a shed?
I would say that, a watershed like the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland is more like a piece of shed.
That or it's very squat. Like, you can't stand up in that shed. You got to crouch down.
Yeah. I think so. All right, I have to do that. I hate to do this, but I have to create a slide here just to reiterate to you guys that all the photography that you're going to see, not just in this episode, but in this entire series, is it's not only my own photography, unless I state otherwise. There might be an example here or there where a picture isn't mine that I took from somewhere else. I will do my best to give that person credit as we go. I'm pretty sure everything in this episode is mine. So there's that. And then the other thing is, when you're out photographing bridges, please do it safely and legally, okay? There's been, with the pandemic and people going absolutely nuts, there's been an uptick in illegal activity all over the internet, it seems, with this bridge stuff, especially with drone photography. Be smart, okay? Don't do stupid stuff out there. You make all of us look bad with your illegal behavior. So, that's it. I'm not here to lecture anybody or anything like that. You might see that stuff elsewhere, but, just don't be an ass. That's all I'm asking. I would think that's not a lot to ask, but, people around here lately have been proving me wrong on that. So, not you guys in the chat or anything like that, but, certain people, I'll say.
In the world.
Yeah. They're out there.
Yeah, and someone who also does a lot of stuff with hiking, you see that a lot in that as well. And you also see places that they may at one point say it was okay to get photos, even of bridges. They may say we can't allow this anymore, and make it more difficult, or basically some of the legal access that you had before, you may not have access to that in the future.
Right. People do this stuff and they don't realize that it actually helps ruin the fun for everybody else down the line. So I know, Doug, you've encountered this in your hiking adventures over the years.
Waterfalls, you see that all the time in waterfalls, and of course, what happens with that is basically, you lose access to it, and then you get a whole bunch of unhappy people.
Yeah. Yep.
So just be smart. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and people are, law enforcement is always uptight anyway as far as bridge photography, from the very beginning. So you're already starting off on the wrong foot. So, just don't exacerbate the problem by thinking that you're above the law. Okay? And when we get to part 2 next week, I'll actually be able to get into that aspect of it more, because I had a more intimate experience with law enforcement with some of these bridges, but I'll talk about that more next week. Nothing bad happened or anything. It's just something that's worth discussing, I think. All right, let's meet the agencies that we're going to encounter along the way tonight. The one that is worth pointing out this week is known as the New York-Pennsylvania Joint Interstate Bridge Commission. I know that's...
With a plagiarized shield.
Yeah, that's a neat little shield, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess that's their official shield. This one is in Callicoon. I haven't seen one anywhere else.
I think there's one in. I'd have to take a look. I think I've seen them in like Coshecton and Narrowsburg before.
Yeah, there are definitely more of these, or
Yeah,
were. I mean, maybe most of them don't survive, but there
Right.
were more.
They're not at every bridge, but there's. I've seen more.
Yeah, so this agency, it's a mouthful to say, but it is a bi-state agency formed in 1919. It gradually, a lot of the bridges that were built over this part of the river were built as private toll bridges originally. And gradually, as time went on, this single agency consolidated all the bridges across the river between Hancock and Port Jervis and combined everything into a single neat entity that could be maintained and operated from a single jurisdiction. The interesting thing about this commission is that it appears to be a purely administrative thing. They do not have any jurisdiction when it comes to actual construction and design or capital improvement projects. All of those things are undertaken by the DOTs of their respective states. But this commission does exist. They have some sort of power in terms of setting an agenda and setting, wish lists for projects, but anything that is undertaken is done so by the state DOTs in PA and New York.
Right. It mostly is existing just essentially to coordinate between the two states. Since, the bridges span them, after all.
Right. Let's start out with some honorable mentions. Now, we're not going to cover every bridge on the east and west branches. We're mainly focused on the river from Hancock on southward. But there are a few honorable mentions that we should bring up from each branch of the river. So on the west branch, we've got a couple of covered bridges here. We've got the Fitch's covered bridge.
It's a little north of Delhi.
A little north of Delhi on Route 10, right?
Just off of Route 10 on the west side of the river, on the east side of the river. You can also access that from Delaware County Route 18.
Which, yes, sidebar here. If you've wondered why that place is pronounced Delhi as opposed to Delhi like the one in India, it's because it's named for being high on the Delaware River.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that, really.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I've seen that mentioned before.
Okay. See that? I've already learned something new today. How about that? The Fitch's Bridge dates to 1870. I'm under the impression it was disassembled and relocated and reassembled in 1885. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that does sound about right.
Okay. And then south of Delhi on Route 10, we have the Hamden Covered Bridge of 1859. And we also have, if you head closer to Hancock, we have this two-span lattice truss railroad bridge here in Deposit, which was built in the early years of the 20th century. I wasn't able to find an exact date on it, but I'm going to say it's somewhere around 1910 when that was built. This is one of my favorite bridges on the upper Delaware. I just really like
That's not the original bridge in that location, therefore, because the Erie Railroad has been there a lot longer than that.
Okay, yeah. There probably was a smaller scale bridge here before. And it was likely because, locomotives got bigger, trains got heavier, so there probably was an older bridge here at some point, and then as loads increased, they built a new one. I think that was pretty common. Like, a lot of the bridges along this line date to the early 1900s, even though the line had been in place for a few decades prior. East Branch honorable mentions. We have another covered bridge. This one in Downsville, built in 1857. That's the picture in the lower right here. The Corbett Suspension Bridge, built in 1926, located a few miles south of Downsville, is here in the lower left.
Right off of exit 92 off of Route 17.
Is it? It's exit. What is it?
That was exit 90.
I think it is.
For Route 30.
Yeah,
92 is a little bit further. I think that's the exit for Cooks Falls.
Yeah, so this is Route 30 in the foreground.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a different bridge than the one I'm thinking of. Then the one I'm thinking, because there is another suspension bridge off of exit 92.
Yeah, there's another really old bridge like right in that area. Yeah, but I forget what that crosses. What is that, Beaver Kill over there?
Yeah, the Beaver. I think it is the Beaver Kill there.
Yeah.
Or the Willow-Weemock. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, the Willow-Weemock through which makes its way through Roscoe and then up through the wilderness up that way. But yeah, the Corbett Bridge is an interesting primitive suspension bridge. It's a single lane wide. It's open to public travel, but it is a neat little old relic that manages to survive today. And then closer towards Hancock, we have the Fish's Eddy Truss Bridge here in the upper right, and also here at the bottom in the center. This was built as a railroad bridge in 1901, and when I'm blanking on the exact name of the railway, something Ontario.
New York, Western, and Ontario.
That's it. Yep.
Or Ontario and Western. It basically went up through Sullivan County and wound up in Oswego.
Yeah, I think a lot of the right-of-way for Route 17, when that was built, followed the right-of-way of that railroad.
Right. At least in Sullivan and parts of Delaware County.
Yeah. So anyway, the railroad ceased operations, and the bridge was repurposed as a road bridge. You can see how it was basically wide enough for a single track. And if you look from a different angle, the piers are super extra wide, so there was actually room to build another set of trusses there had they been able to expand it. But it's a single lane road bridge today. Again, another really interesting piece of railroad construction that's been repurposed over the years. And then we reach Hancock. So there are 3 bridges in Hancock. 2 of them cross the East Branch. 1 of them crosses the West Branch. Originally, there were 3 truss bridges. The bridge on the West Branch here in the bottom center was built in the mid-30s. The one in the lower left, as you can see, is not a truss bridge. That's because it was replaced around 2005. There was an older truss bridge here before. I want to say that bridge was significantly older than the 1930s bridge that we mentioned. And then there was also a railroad bridge, which you can see here in the lower right, which again dates to the early 1900s. This is also on the same line as the rail bridge that crosses the West Branch of the river up by Deposit.
Right, so that would have been replaced with the same effort to upgrade those bridges.
Yeah, I want to say that a lot of these bridges along here date to like the first years of the 20th century. Yeah, it's interesting
that would
when
make sense.
when you look at the timeline of the upgrades along this railroad. I mean, it really fits with a lot of upgrades elsewhere across the country, like the Poughkeepsie Railroad Bridge. It was built in the 1880s, but it was drastically strengthened and improved right around the same timeline, early 1900s, as these bridges here along the Delaware. So there appears to be a much more coordinated effort to strengthen railroad capacity, certainly in this part of the country, and probably you might find a similar pattern elsewhere too. But these 2 road bridges are the northernmost bridges under the that mouthful commission that I mentioned a few slides ago that I already...
Yeah, we'll just call them the Joint Bridge Commission.
The what now?
The Joint Bridge Commission.
Yeah, we could call it that if you like.
Yeah, I think that's what I tend to call. It's just easiest.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the other Joint Bridge Commission, which will be discussed next week.
That is
right.
That's true. Yeah. So a couple more views here. We have the rail bridge in the upper left. We have the West Branch Bridge in the lower right. And you can see some fishermen in the river. This
is a very popular activity. I mean, a little bit upstream, actually more so on the Beaver Kill. That's, the fly fishing capital of America.
Something else you can notice with the rail bridge here is that it's wide enough for 2 tracks, but only one of them is in use. This entire, it was the former Erie Railroad main line, once was 2 tracks all the way through. It now is not due to a lack of need in the modern day for that.
Yeah, and that's something else about the bridge and deposit. Like, all the bridges along here are 2 tracks wide, but are obviously only in use for a single track. I think that's the case all the way down the line to Port Jervis. Like, all the rail bridges that I've seen along this corridor were built double wide, but are only used for a single track.
Yeah, I mean, all the way down to Suffern even on that line.
Yeah,
but most of the Port Jervis line past there is single track with only occasional sidings.
Yeah. So I bring up this picture to show you the confluence of the east and west branches, just downstream of Hancock. So we have the west branch coming in from this way. We have the east branch coming in this way. They meet at the confluence point here, just south of town, and we are off downstream. Next stop is the Atlantic Ocean after 3 weekends of coverage.
Yep, and
we'll
a
get
few
there
hundred
eventually.
Miles of travel.
What is it?
And after a few hundred miles of travel.
Yeah, I don't remember what the exact river mileage is, but it's a few hundred, I think.
Yeah.
Well, this is a nice view. This is a drone picture. This is, by the way, that view that we had on that slide. That's basically the nearest, like the southernmost point that you can legally fly in, because the National Park Service territory takes over right at the confluence. So you can't fly downstream of that point until you reach like Port Jervis. So sadly, all of the pictures that we're going to see in the next several bridges here are all ground level pictures for that reason. But let's get into these mainstream Delaware River bridges now, shall we? Let's start in Lordville. Brief history of Lordville. In 1850, a fellow by the name of George Lord was granted a license to operate a ferry over the Delaware River in this spot. Gradually over time, this little settlement grew, and it became known as the town of Lordville. The first bridge to be built here goes back to 1870. It was wrecked in a flood in 1903. An I-bar suspension bridge was built the following year, and that stood at this site until the mid-1980s, when it was shut down and had to be demolished due to an undermining of one of its support piers. So basically the whole thing just started to sag and gradually collapse. So, and since there was no way to really repair it, they had to remove it, and they ultimately replaced it in the early 90s with the bridge that we have today.
With something unfortunately far less interesting, but it gets the job done.
It does. Yeah.
And Lordville's a nice little hamlet, so to speak. Actually, I went through there in July.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think these pictures are from early October when I was here. And I had never actually gone down to the river like you see in the lower right.
And I had found a hiking trail nearby over to a place called Jensen's Ledges in the Boshu Brook.
Oh, that's a mouthful.
You have to go through Lordville to get there. So.
Oh, okay.
Note the trapezoidal shape to the piers here. Those are pointed upstream in order to deflect any ice flows that may come at it.
Which is definitely a concern on the Delaware.
Yeah, so you're going to see that on most of the bridges that we passed today. You'll see that they have that wedge shape to the pier facing in the upstream direction, and that's exactly what it's there for, protection against ice flows. And over the years, there have been bridges on the upper Delaware that have been destroyed by ice flows, and so that's been a very significant factor when it comes to bridge design up this way. If you have to put your piers in the water at all, which in the case of this next bridge, there aren't any piers in the water, so you don't have to worry about that. But we have ourselves a happy little suspension bridge, as the late Bob Ross would say. This one has been with us through thick and thin since 1890. It has outlived most of the bridges on the Delaware. It's one of the oldest surviving ones, I know that. This bridge has a single suspended span of just shy of 400 feet long. It's a single lane wide, as you can see. The closest that it ever came to being completely wiped off the map was in 2006, when there was a major flood event that partially damaged it, but it was able to be repaired and reopened to traffic. The bridge was shut down in 2018 for a major refurbishment project, but it was subsequently reopened later on in the year, and you can see it looks pretty nice. They did a one-time through paint job on it, among other things, and it looks better than it ever has, I would say. So
are we going to address the unusual cable configuration?
Well, we absolutely should address that, yeah.
Yes.
So this is known as an underspanned suspension bridge, and what that means, and you don't see this anymore, but this was more of an old style way of doing it. You see how the cables come down like this, and then they dip beneath. That's a terrible job of drawing here. Let me try this again. Comes down like this, and then goes well below deck level, and then comes back up to reunite with the other tower. And then you see what happens in here, where actually the deck it goes from being suspended from above to being supported from beneath, with stringers that connect with the cables underneath the roadway. It was a very odd way of doing it. You don't see this anymore. My only guess is that this was a experimental design, and it obviously wasn't very popular in the long run, because now you don't see this built. You didn't see stuff like this built in the 20th century.
Yeah, I mean, the benefit of doing this is that you don't have to build the towers as high.
Right.
Yeah, that would work. And also, you don't have to worry about marine traffic through here either.
Right, that would be another thing. Is you're losing clearance underneath by doing this as well.
Most of the water traffic that you'd see on the upper Delaware would be like rowboats, canoes, kayaks, people on like rafts and tubes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
and we'll counter that quite a bit later on in the presentation as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the heaviest river traffic that you're going to encounter is people on rafts and kayaks and stuff like that.
And unless you have someone like Zdeno Chara, you're probably not going to have any clearance issues either on those kayaks.
I think Zdeno Chara would fit under this bridge. The river might have to be a bit low, but I think he could fit.
Yeah.
That's a hockey reference for you, by the way.
Yeah, he's 6 foot 10 inch tall hockey player. He's actually like 43 years old or something like that now.
Yeah, he's an old fart now.
Yeah, I remember when he played for the Islanders, and when he started his career, he was just basically this really tall player. I was surprised he made it, at least 2 decades beyond that.
I didn't realize he started with the Islanders. That's interesting.
Yeah, he was actually traded to Ottawa for Alexei Yashin. That's another.
Wow.
That's another name.
That's going back into the Wayback Machine. Okay.
Yeah.
Where are we now? Callicoon. Nice little village. I really like this town. It is home to the longest of the New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware River bridges, if you count it from abutment to abutment. This bridge has been with us since 1962. Callicoon started out as a lumbering town on the Delaware River. It was settled, in colonial times. Over the years, as the railroad came through, it became a popular stop along the New York and Erie Railroad corridor between Port Jervis and Binghamton. So it became a pretty sizable town in the late 19th century, and it still maintains that status to this day. The bridge that used to stand here, let me see here. Let me go into my notes here. Late 1890s, the Horseheads Bridge Company, which later went on to build the bridge down at Digman's Ferry that we'll talk about next week. They constructed a truss bridge here in 1899. This bridge was, let's see, what am I looking at here? Yeah, it survived a major storm in 1904. It was sold to the Bridge Commission in 1923. It even survived the flooding in 1955 following Hurricane Diane, which actually damaged a lot of bridges on the upper Delaware, as we'll see next week. But that bridge had to be replaced ultimately, and it was replaced in the early 1960s. The old bridge, by the way, bears a pretty similar resemblance to the next bridge downstream that we're going to talk about, which
also
continues to stand to this day.
Another thing here is you'll notice in the photo on the lower left that sign says to PA 191. PA 191 is several miles west of here. What is actually on the west end of this bridge is a quadrant route 1016, but they sign it as a way to get to 191.
Yeah.
And for context, the east side feeds closely into the end of New York Route 17B.
Right. Which is, actually goes to Monticello from Callicoon, so.
Yep. Or if you believe the signs, it was signed as US 97 and US 17B for a little while.
Yes.
As of July, it still was.
Is it still there? I didn't.
Yeah.
When I was through there, I didn't check this fall if the signs were still there, but yeah, that doesn't surprise me. All right. Next stop is Coshocton and the bridge over the river here over to Damascus, Pennsylvania. There has been a river crossing of some type here dating back to the early 1800s. This is also the western end of the historic Newburgh and Coshocton Turnpike, which was a colonial era, super highway for motor carriages in this part of New York State. Also note the structural similarity to this bridge, between this bridge and the West Branch Bridge up at Hancock that we saw a little while ago. The one up at Hancock is a 2-span truss. This one is a 3-span truss. But
And a couple of other notes about Coshocton and the bridge. On the Sullivan County side of the bridge, it's signed as County Route 114. And if you're into historical, land claims, New Jersey had a land claim, back in colonial times where, basically they were claiming land up to Coshocton.
up to Coshecton, but it would have started at the same point on the Hudson River. It
just would have been a different diagonal.
A steeper diagonal line that would have given New Jersey a sort of panhandle, or an antenna, or whatever you want to think of it as.
Yeah, so this bridge, the current bridge that stands here today, opened in 1952, but there have been bridges spanning this area of the river since the what do we want to call it? Since the mid to late 1800s. Okay, here's the bridge that is similar to the old Callicoon Bridge, the one here at Skinner's Falls. Skinner's Falls was a small outpost community founded by the Skinner family, who operated a ferry across the Delaware here in the early 1900s, or up until the early 1900s.
Sure it wasn't actually the Tanzarian family?
No, I'm pretty sure about that.
Seymour!
Let's see here. What do we want to say here? Built in 1902. A very rare and ornate structure that's really not been modified all that much since its original construction. It's still a relic of, late 1800s truss bridge design and construction. And probably the biggest shame of it all is that it is currently closed. It was shut down, I want to say, about a year ago. Or maybe it was longer than that. I don't remember exactly. But it's been closed for a while. You cannot drive across it.
When I was there, I saw a big looked like it was a big mound of dirt right around the bridge. And it's also a jumping off point, as you can see in one of the photos, for a lot of, the rafts and, kayaks that, we had, we were mentioning, earlier. So I think that's where a lot of the tube company, that's where they basically have a lot of the parking for people who want to raft down the Delaware River.
Yeah, I did notice that there is quite a jumping off point there. But anyway, so regarding the bridge, I mean, it does face an uncertain future. It was shut down to automobile traffic. New York and Pennsylvania would like to retrofit it to carry vehicle traffic of some sort again. However, the budgetary situation being what it is, there's no real timeline for that to occur. So they closed it, and it remains shut down indefinitely, and we'll have to see how this plays out in the future. One thing to consider, assuming that this bridge does not get reopened, the detour around this bridge is not all that significant. I would say most traffic in this area just crosses at Coshecton anyway. Certainly heavier traffic does. So, the detour here, I think the Coshecton Bridge is only about 2 or 3 miles upstream from here. But, so the detour isn't that extreme anyway. So there may be some motivation on New York and Pennsylvania's part to kind of play the long game with us for that reason.
Yeah. So I had, when I went, and I actually had stopped in Coshecton, and I was speaking with a gentleman who was selling skewered beef out of his yard. He was mentioning that I should take the river road on the Pennsylvania side to get to the Skinner's Falls Bridge instead of 97. That was a little nice ride. Of course, I didn't realize the bridge was closed, so I had to go back up to Coshecton. Not a huge deal, but.
So who was this guy you were talking to?
The guy who was selling
chicken
kebabs out of his yard.
Wow.
So I'm driving, I'm like, it's like skewers, turn right. I'm like, I could go for some kebabs.
Wow. Maybe he was just some local who knew the roads of the area. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, one suggestion that's been floated with regards to the Skinner's Falls Bridge is to just keep it open for pedestrian traffic and create some sort of, historic park or something right in that area. Because it is an area that does get a decent amount of traffic coming from the New York side, at least. Because you got that jumping off point for the rafting right there. So that there is a decent amount of traffic that runs through there anyway. So they may be able to do something like that down the road, but we'll have to see what happens with that. It bears watching in the next few years. Next up, Narrowsburg. As the name of this town suggests, the river does get a little bit narrow here as it passes through the town, which...
It is only about 200 feet wide from the New York shore to the Pennsylvania shore, and it is the narrowest point in the length of the Delaware River main stem, and this is located, basically main stem meaning south of Hancock.
So, yeah, south of the confluence.
It is located at River Mile 290 from the mouth of the Delaware Bay.
Okay. See that? We only got 290 miles to go now, people. Yeah, so I'm going to assume that that's where Narrowsburg, the village, gets its name. There have been 4 bridges built here over the years. This one that stands today is the most recent one, built in 1954. This is a unique bridge. It's an underdeck arch design, which is not a very common design on this river. It's one of the only ones I'm thinking off the top of my head. I know we got like 3 weeks worth of bridges that I'm going through in my head right now, but I think this is the only one of these that you'll find.
Right, and I think there is a geological reason for that, because I'm actually looking at a picture I took of a interpretive sign in Narrowsburg, basically, and it shows like the river profile, and the river, even though it's 200 feet across at this point, also gets to be about 113 feet deep.
Right. Well, it's punched through like a bit of a hard rocky formation here, so that's kind of why you have the narrow spot. It found a hole and made it, and so you get some good solid rock. You can easily span it like this, but the water in the middle is a bit deep to drop a pier in.
And I'm also looking at the Narrowsburg, this interpretive sign. And it looks like there was also toll. One of the earlier editions of the bridge, there was a toll bridge. It was a nice truss, kind of looks like the Skinner's Falls Bridge we saw a little bit upstream. And another thing that I had noticed about Narrowsburg when I was going through my photos is that on the Pennsylvania side of the bridge, there is another Joint Bridge Commission sign. This one is actually the Joint Bridge Commission bridge number 4.
There is also a rare surviving overhead "Welcome to Pennsylvania" sign.
Yes, there is. Yeah. And that's actually pretty neat. I think I've seen that, I want to say, on 202 when you cross it at Delaware. Delaware might have that.
Yeah, there was another one there. Yep.
There used to be a lot more. Most of them are gone. Some other things to discuss here regarding route numbering is, yes, this bridge marks the western end of New York Route 52. The Pennsylvania side is Route 652, which connects New York Route 52 with U.S. Route 6 on the Pennsylvania side, hence the numbering. Historically, this bridge once represented the eastern end of U.S. Route 106.
Really?
So I think well, actually, wait. How old did we say this particular bridge was?
Well, this one is 1954.
Okay, so I think US 106 was decommissioned before the current bridge was built, but the previous bridge at this location would have been the eastern end of US Route 106 because New York never wanted anything to do with it, so it never went past the state line.
So did 106 just exist along what is now 652?
No, so it was 652. It then had a concurrency with 6 itself. It then a lot of the route in Pennsylvania is now PA Route 706.
Okay.
So what I'm showing is that it was Basically went to went to Narrowsburg. Looks like by 1928 they changed the alignment numbering, so it looks like it didn't get to Narrowsburg since then. But 106 106 was was in Pennsylvania further west, basically from Carbondale to Wyalusing up to 1972.
Yeah, so this was a very early iteration of the U.S. route system.
Yes,
okay.
When they were hoping that New York would actually,
right.
Pennsylvania give in and actually have U.S. routes.
Quite some disagreement on this. Pennsylvania absolutely loved U.S. highways and was designating them all over the place. New York institutionally was extremely opposed to having any more than the absolute few most important roads having that shield. And there is written documentation of this of a couple of people from the state of New York at the time, basically saying such in their writings to ASHO. We're making too many U.S. highways. Please stop.
Yeah. So we're going to skip over the Tustin Railroad Bridge, which stands a few miles south of Narrowsburg, and we're going to skip over to the Roebling Aqueduct. Here's a little bit of a historical site for you. You might not be able to tell this based on just looking at it, but it was built actually as an aqueduct to carry boats across the river. This was built in 1849 along a critical part of the then Delaware and Hudson Canal. Over the years, it's been heavily modified. It was like the original aqueduct carrying infrastructure was stripped away. And for a time, it looked kind of similar to the Regalsville Bridge further downstream that we'll talk about next week. And then there was a restoration project that kind of put everything back together. It's not, this isn't the original appearance of it, but it is a good faith replication effort to show what it used to look like originally. And the picture in the lower left, where you have the single lane roadway, that was basically just a giant bathtub of water that boats would go up and down on their merry way down the canal, which the D&H Canal, as it's by itself, was a pretty significant achievement in the day.
Right, so built went up to Kingston and Honesdale and along 209 for a good portion.
Yeah, it does follow that corridor. It was built to connect the upper Delaware River with the Hudson River in the Kingston area. The canal itself really didn't stay in service all that long. It was built initially in 1828, or the first section of it was. It was substantially complete by the 1850s, but was shut down in the late 1890s. There are a couple of areas, I think, dug especially along 209, where you can see the old canal bed still in place.
Right, you can actually explore it a little bit. Phillipsport is Phillips. I think it's Phillipsport, where you can there's actually a park where you can actually take pictures of the old canal bed.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I don't know if the pieces are that substantial, but it does remind me of some of the preservation of like the DNR in New Jersey,
right?
And a couple others as well. That it does remind me of that. But there are, if you take a drive on 209, like from Port Jervis on up towards Kingston, you'll see it off to the side of the road. There's actually a couple of spots there where you can see the bed, which still has water in it and all that stuff. So, and
there's also in High Falls in Ulster County on off 213. You can see the old. You can see some of the old relics, the old aqueducts. In High Falls, right off of 213.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As well. I actually saw that last week. Not as much old relics and old, basically canal bits that you can see as compared to, let's say, like the Erie Canal or the Champlain Canal. But definitely, it's there's definitely a few pieces of interest there. Something
else we want to throw out here. Well, a couple things. Thing one, and you can sort of see it here, is that I believe that the walls of this bridge actually hide a suspension structure.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, yes. So it's not really visible because they made a bathtub out of it, but ties into the other thing I was going to say, that Mr. Roebling is a little bit famous for his work with suspension bridges. This is not his most well-known work. He's got just a couple that are better known.
Yeah.
But
I believe that his work on this bridge kind of really jump-started his career, and then after the completion of this bridge, he really became, well known as an engineer. He went on to build the original Niagara Falls Bridge, really a few years after this one, the 1850s, and then the bridge at Cincinnati, and then of course he is credited with the design of the bridge that became known as the Brooklyn Bridge, that his son and his son's wife finished out. But yeah, this was really his first big challenge as an engineer, and I believe not just this bridge, but also there was another aqueduct bridge similar to this one, a short distance from this spot, over the Lackawaxen River. It no longer exists today. I mean, there's like if you're looking for it, you can see what's left of one of the abutments. But I think Roebling was also involved with that one as well. He may have had a few of these kinds of bridges up and down the D&H Canal. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, he was pretty active and pretty involved with the engineering of the D&H when it was built.
Yeah, the Lackawaxen River is a tributary. It dumps into the Delaware, basically right north of this bridge.
Yeah.
But
yeah, this is if you're into Roebling family history and engineering, this is definitely a spot to go check out. Every engineer, no matter what path their career takes, they all have to start somewhere, and I think that this site on the Delaware is one of those first big steps that he took with his career. All right, we're here in Berryville now. There have been 5 bridges here over the years. This is the most. This one has been with us since about 2007 or so.
Right, because I have a picture from when I passed through in May of 2006. You could still drive across the old. There was an old truss bridge that this bridge replaced, but you could see where they were working on the new bridge.
Yeah, the truss bridge was built in the. Let's see here. Let's look at the fourth span. Fourth span was the truss bridge. That was the one built in 1941. The other 3 bridges before that one, at least 2 of those early bridges were suspension bridges, and they were probably, let's see here, they were definitely inspired by the Roebling engineering just upstream with the D&H. But they were suspension bridges. That had to be either knocked down and rebuilt, or the amount of traffic just outgrew those bridges. So there were 3 bridges built in the 19th century. The third bridge stood until 1939, when that one was knocked down and replaced with the truss bridge, which was eventually knocked down and replaced by the bridge that we have today. And this
bridge which
yeah.
Right. It is PA 434 on the Pennsylvania side. Absolutely. There is some debate as to what the appropriate number on the New York side actually is. The thing with New York Route 55 is that the western extent of it is county maintenance. So, as signed, Route 55 actually ends at Route 97, just north of the bridge. And the signs there actually point to PA 434, not even with a 2, just South PA 434 that way, from the New York side on Route 97. So there is some debate as to whether this bridge actually is part of New York 55. It certainly is not officially part of PA 434 on the New York side by any source other than those signs. But yeah, there's a little bit of fuzziness with designation there.
Right. And on the Sullivan County side, it's also County Route 11.
Yeah, that's the designation for maintenance purposes, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Also, one other thing to take into consideration here, this bridge's design is a bit of a callback to the Roebling Aqueduct. You notice how the piers have this stone cladding to them. Really, just the overall appearance of it is pretty similar to the aqueduct upstream. I have to think that that's an intentional callback to that design, even though this bridge is not obviously a suspension bridge. But the two don't look all that dissimilar. I mean, I would argue that the Lordville Bridge is the ugliest on the river, but that's just me.
Yeah, this basically, I think the bridges have a nice competition with itself about its appearance, I guess.
Yeah, the other reason that I don't mind the Berryville Bridge as much is that it's built on a curve. So it's got a more... It's interesting. Most bridges across rivers are a straight shot, right, from one side to the other. But this bridge has a curve in it. And part of that is because it's bypassing the right-of-way of the bridge that stood previously. But, no, it was an interesting little... quirk that you don't often see on bridges that cross rivers. We've arrived now in Pond Eddy, which we have to spend a few minutes on because there are a couple of bridges here that we should talk about. This bridge, the old bridge that is no longer with us, was built in 1903. It replaced an earlier suspension bridge that dated back to 1870 around the settlement of Pond Eddy. A community that now largely no longer exists, but it was a decent-sized settlement for a period of time in the 19th century. This bridge stood for well over 100 years. There's no real documented evidence of any major mishaps over its lifetime, and that includes the years where there were major floods and all sorts of other stuff that happened. This bridge appears to have lived a very successful life. So we should talk also about the weirdness that happens here, because there is a settlement on the Pennsylvania side that can only be reached by this bridge.
Right. And when there was talk about replacing the bridge, part of it was, basically there was a big question about the residents on the Pennsylvania side of the bridge. Basically, should they build a new bridge? Should they, buy out, their properties? Should they build, an access road to somewhere else in Pennsylvania? So, they had a few different options that they had to consider.
Right, and it's worth noting that this is an exclave community today in the sense that the only way in and out of there is via this bridge over to New York. But the reason it's there to begin with also comes back to the Erie Railroad again. It is on the Pennsylvania side of the river in this location, and historically there would have been a train station there, so that would have been, the way people got in and out of the area, and the bridge would have gotten you to the train station from the New York side.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Now that there has not been any passenger service on that railroad in quite a long time, so now the people who live there only get to have freight trains going past their houses occasionally.
Yeah. So, yeah, over the years with this bridge becoming older and with modern-day emergency equipment becoming heavier, it became apparent that something had to be done as far as improving the connection between the New York side and this exclave community on the Pennsylvania side. So they had to figure something out long term for that. Hey, look, it's David Golub.
Hey, David Golub.
And so really the ultimate solution here was to just replace the bridge, and I gotta think that they did that because it probably was the cheapest solution. I gotta think that's what the reasoning was for that. So yeah, let's get into this bridge, which was completed in 2018 to replace the 1903 bridge. It's still a single lane wide, and that's down to the fact that there just isn't a lot of traffic crossing here to begin with. But one improvement that you'll immediately notice is that there's now a dedicated sidewalk that's curbed up away from the roadway. So that's an improvement. They did build a truss bridge here. They could have gone with something else, but they chose to go with a design that is a callback to the original bridge.
Even though this one is much stockier.
Yeah, this one's
does
got,
alter the appearance.
Yeah, this one's got some beef on it. But no, this one's built to stand for at least another 100 years.
They don't want to. They don't want to take chances, I guess.
Yeah, I mean this was a bridge that's built to last. So hopefully our grandkids will live to see the next bridge that gets built here. But here's some more pictures of the old bridge, which again, once the 2018 bridge was built, this one was removed. I think there was talk of somebody possibly buying this bridge and reassembling it somewhere else, but I don't think anything ever came of that. And then this slide, we have a couple more views of the present-day bridge.
Right, where you can see the old bridge had this is the other big reason it looks stockier too. The old bridge had a lot of truss within a truss, where some of those truss members were themselves little trusses, whereas here the truss members are all solid continuous pieces of steel.
Yeah. Now we are not going to skip over the Mill Rift Bridge, which even though it carries railroad traffic only, it is a bridge that is reasonably accessible and is worth talking about for a couple minutes. This is one of two railroad bridges spanning the upper Delaware north of Port Jervis. The other one is the Tustin Bridge that we skipped over earlier.
Which, I don't think that you certainly can't get right up to it without trespassing.
Yeah,
there may be a place you can see it from a distance, but
I mean, unless you were on a raft, that's basically it. There's private property on both sides. It's very difficult to get to begin with, but I'm pretty sure all that is private property in there. I think there's like a private campground in there somewhere. So on the New York side.
Okay, yeah, all right. If the road all the way up to the campground is private the whole way, then yeah. Because the place I was thinking of was from that road.
Yeah, so I think the only way that you could get a decent shot of the Tustin Bridge would be from the river itself. But this one is not. This one does not have that issue, so we can talk about this one. This is the point where the railroad line between Port Jervis and Binghamton switches to the Pennsylvania side of the river, and then the Tustin Bridge brings it back over to the New York side, upstream. It is listed in the catalog of of CSX as bridge number 2 along this stretch of the railroad. I guess that's because, I don't know, is this the second bridge from a certain mile marker? I'm assuming that's why. But they catalog it as that. The other thing that we should mention here is that there is a pretty good reason why the railroad skips to the other side of the river at this point, because just upstream of here is the famous Hawk's Nest area, a giant cliffside area with steep slopes and not a lot of real estate. In fact, if you've ever been on Route 97 leaving Port Jervis, you encounter a very narrow, windy road for about a mile or so that is, in bad weather, tricky to navigate, but when the conditions are right, it's a pretty spectacular drive.
Yeah, it's definitely a sight to see.
Yeah, it is. One of those places that's a little fun for something that you might expect in the Northeast. Do recommend.
Yeah.
You can see the single track here back to there used to be a second track on the other half. Yeah. They've not only removed the track, though, they've removed even the decking underneath it.
Yeah. By the way, we're back to aerial pictures now because the National Park Service area has expired. We're now at the southern limit of that. So
yeah, for now, because you'll see it again in south of Port Jervis.
Well, yeah, we will encounter that problem again in a little bit.
And that is a broad nationwide thing. The National Park Service does not permit the use of drones anywhere on any land they own.
Yeah.
You go to bigger national park facilities, you will see signs stating so, but it does apply to all of their territory, regardless of whether or not there is a sign.
Yep. All right, we've arrived in Port Jervis. Port Jervis, New York, and Matamoros, Pennsylvania are connected by this bridge, the Mid-Delaware Bridge. This one has been around since 1939. It's a supersized truss bridge. I mean, this thing is built, it's a beast. It's built as 4 lanes wide, even though only the street along it is only 2 lanes wide. The truss itself is not particularly special in terms of its design, but it is a supersized design. This is also the southernmost Joint Bridge Commission crossing that we'll talk about today.
It's also the end of Due 6.
You beat me to it. Due 6 mile marker 400 is just shy of this bridge.
Yes.
Yeah,
nice,
right.
Nice even number of miles to that.
Yeah, that worked out pretty nice.
That's the old, that's kind of the old, alignments or of US 6 because they have US 6 has moved in a few places over the years in Pennsylvania.
I think the only places where there's really is the bypass up to Carbondale is the one big place.
The big one. I think Warren, PA is another one.
And Warren would be the other one. Yeah, where Due 6
in Meadville
goes along the old alignment.
Yeah, that in Meadville I think is the other one.
So I wasn't really able to find a reason why this bridge is called Mid-Delaware. I mean, that could be just, it's mid-Delaware from a certain point of view, or, there might be some other definition that they're using, but...
is it any more mid-Delaware than mid-Hudson is mid-Hudson?
Yeah, well, that's more of like a description of the Hudson Valley than like the
Whereas,
Hudson River.
Basically north of Port Jervis, it's the upper Delaware. So this is, to me, it's probably the significance of, once you're in Port Jervis, you're, really leaving the upper Delaware, and then you're going to,
the
middle part of the Delaware, which is, going to be for, next Sunday's episode.
Right. Well, and you also note that, you're in a place called Port, which yes, that means that historically boat traffic came up here. No, the river is not tidal this far up, but there were ways to get small watercraft over rapids. You just needed to portage and stuff, and of course later they had canals.
Yeah. A couple more views on this slide. The bridges in the Port Jervis area are flyable because the National Park Service doesn't occupy this part of the river. But once you get past the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania tri-point, you do re-enter another restricted area. But we ain't got to worry about that on this presentation because our last bridge tonight is this one, carrying Interstate 84. Hey, we have an interstate highway bridge finally. This bridge was built in the late 60s as part of the much larger Interstate 84 corridor across northeast Pennsylvania and the Hudson Valley of New York. It is a dual-span bridge, as you can see. There's two parallel spans. That's a first that we've encountered. This is the furthest upstream bridge of that type. And located immediately downstream of this point is the tri-point that I was alluding to earlier.
Yeah. About 20 feet from the eastbound span of the bridge.
Yeah,
and you can get through there through the Laurel Grove Cemetery from Route 6.
Right, and people will claim various things about this. To make sure we're clear on the facts here, there is a monument marking the tri-point on the New Jersey and New York shore of the river. However, the actual tri-point is in the middle of the river. The border follows the middle of the river, not the bank. And some people will say, oh, well, does I-84 technically clip New Jersey? No. Even the tri-point in the middle of the river is south of the bridge by a matter of feet, but
yes,
it is
20
south.
feet.
Yeah, I mean, it's that close, right?
And that's where the Delaware and the Neversink rivers meet.
So you cannot clinch Sussex County, New Jersey from I-84. You need to get off at exit 1 and go south just a hair.
Yeah.
I think the state line, if you take exit 1, is what, a quarter mile south of the interchange?
Right, it's basically right there.
Yeah, right. That's close enough to where they signed it as
it's a good opportunity to get less expensive gas and have someone pump it for you.
That's right. Yeah. You just go about a quarter mile south and you have full service gas, too.
Yeah. And a ShopRite.
That's true, too, yeah. And with that, looking south from the tri-point towards the Delaware Water Gap. That's it for today. We've reached our destination for part 1. We thank you all for joining us. We just took a look at all the bridges from Hancock to Port Jervis, but there are plenty more bridges to come in the next couple of weeks. Starting next week we'll pick up from here and head southward through the Delaware Water Gap and on to Trenton. There's plenty of bridges to talk about next Sunday. But that is it as far as the PowerPoint is concerned for today. So if anybody has any questions about anything that they've seen to this point in the river, I'm more than happy to entertain those for you guys.
And if you've liked this video, feel free to like the video.
But please do. It lets
13
us know
people already have.
Well, it lets us know that people are watching and that they enjoy what they see. So, that helps me out too. So, we'll take a few minutes here to take questions, and then we do have some video for you guys to kind of recap everything that we've seen on PowerPoint. So, while you guys have the opportunity to ask questions, who's everybody picking tonight for the playoffs? You got Kansas City, Cleveland, and you've got what the hell is the other game? Oh,
I think
Saints,
it's
Saints
Tampa
Bucks.
Bay and New Orleans.
Yeah. That's it.
The old timers bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, they got
versus Kansas City and Cleveland being the whippersnapper bowl because Mahomes and Mayfield have not been in the league nearly as long as Breeze and Brady.
Well, that's true. And then if you throw Josh Allen into that mix, it'll be some young whippersnapper against some old fart, possibly, in the Super Bowl.
It's just a weird year in general that you've got the Browns in the playoffs at all, but hey.
I mean, I think the universe might explode because the Browns won a playoff game.
Yeah.
It's the
And
end
it could
of
be the
times.
Browns and Bills in the AFC Championship. Who would have, thought that after all the years of, I want to say, futility.
Although if there was going to be a season where it would happen, it would be the 2020 season.
Yeah, heck, the Islanders almost made the Stanley Cup in 2020.
That's true, yeah. Well, we'll talk, so differences and similarities between the bridges at Skinner's Falls and Dingman's Ferry. I mean, they are kind of similar, right? We'll see this again next week when we get into the Dingman's Bridge more in depth, but there is a resemblance there. I mean, the Skinner's Falls Bridge is a 2-span bridge, whereas the Dingman's Ferry Bridge is 3 spans, but they do appear to be derived from the same or from a similar concept. I know I'm looking forward to talk about the Dingman's Bridge next week because we get to talk about cash toll payments and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a very, very unique bridge in that aspect.
Yeah, the experience of driving it is more interesting than the actual bridge. In my opinion.
Because
This is true.
Right, because it beckons back to the days of yore.
Well, more on this next week.
Yes.
That's a little teaser for next week's episode. Yes. Well, I've got video here of every single bridge that we've talked about. I think we probably have time to run through these real quick.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. We may not have this opportunity next week, but I think we can do this week. I'm going to try to do this in order the best that I can, but let's see how well I can do. So we'll start up here in Hancock. This is where Route 97 begins at Route 17 at exit 87 on the Quickway. And you'll notice the quantity of PA 191 shields, even though we're still in New York State, but they do point the way towards this bridge and the Pennsylvania side of it, which is Route 191.
You get a 2 here at least, and right there is actually a 191 shield even on the guide signage from Route 17.
Yeah.
So they do very well sign it.
Yeah.
And the one I had, basically, drove up 191, and into Hancock, at the, that had the governor's name on the Welcome to New York sign a lot later than, because they were taken off when Pataki became governor, but somehow that sign kept the governor's name on, I think, until Spitzer was governor.
Wait, so whose governor was on the sign?
They had Pataki wanted the names, the governor's name off the welcome signs.
Oh, he wanted it taken off.
Yeah, but they stayed on. Basically they had the name on during Pataki administration. Want to say they had the name on for Spitzer, and then they got rid of it around that time frame.
Well, I mean, they basically could put it back on and put Cuomo's name on it. It'll be accurate for the next 30 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not making a political statement when I say this, but if he wants to be governor for life, he probably could.
It was also interesting seeing this southbound in the daytime. My experience with this bridge is northbound at nighttime, and that was the time that attempting to clinch PA 191 cost me $2,000.
Oh, that's right.
Ooh.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
No, well, that's a fun little story that we can kill a little time with here. So, right, so the time that I went to clinch Route 191, I hit a really, really nasty pothole. I didn't see it. I felt it. Blew out a tire, dented a rim. I needed not only a new tire and a new rim, but a new strut and strut mount too. It was a lot of money getting that fixed. It was also fun driving home from there on the donut.
Yeah,
I think the time I clinched PA 191 was at night too. The first time, but of course I've been through it, basically during the day, at least this part, a few different times. So because for me, I could from 191 I could link up to Route 10 and go up to my cabin pretty quickly.
Yeah, Hancock was a significant town for me when I was a little kid, and we just crossed the East Branch Bridge in the previous video. Now this is the Lordville Bridge. This was a popular stopping point, between my house and Dutchess County and Binghamton. When I was a little kid, we used to make
it's got the only McDonald's for pretty much. It's got the only anything for miles.
Yeah, it's like the first. It's like the first, outpost of civilization if you're going west for the first time in quite a distance.
Right, it's the first thing you see after the Roscoe Diner.
Yeah, pretty much.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, there's like the little outpost that is the Roscoe Diner, and then, really you got to go east to Liberty before you find anything substantial.
Or you can go north to Agloe.
Yeah. This also includes the drive through the little town of Lordville, which is it's one of those towns that appears to be stuck in the 19th century. It's like frozen in time.
Yeah, that's most little hamlets in upstate New York.
Yeah, places like that put off a nice aesthetic.
Yeah, like Lordville, Charlottesville, towns that time is pretty much forgotten in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing about some of these bridges, as we cross them, we have the railroad right along the riverfront. Some of these rail crossings don't even have gates on them, but I would imagine that because traffic is so light in this area that there's not a whole lot that has to be done here from a traffic management standpoint.
Both road traffic and rail traffic, they do at least have the bells and lights.
Yeah. So this one has gates, okay. But yeah, I mean, both modes of travel through here are so light that there's probably not a whole lot of consideration to having to do anything really substantial. Hey, look, there's a bridge. There it is. Single lane and an open deck.
11 tons. Don't see that often.
Well, my car did not weigh more than 11 tons, so...
And a quadrant route marker right there at the end.
Right, so looks like Pennsylvania is the outfit that, basically maintains this bridge.
And it is also a good point though that with the track right there on that side, logically, if a train is coming, you would need to wait before or even if a train is not coming and someone's coming the other way off the bridge, you still want to stop and wait before the track to not stop on the tracks. They should teach you not to do that. There's a good reason not to.
Yeah, right. Let's see. Where are we? What the hell's the next bridge from here? Is it Callicoon? I think so. I'm just going to say it's Callicoon, and we're just going to go with that.
Yeah, it would be Callicoon.
All right. See, I still have a hard time keeping all of these straight, but I wanted to play this video because it includes the descent into the village from Route 97 northbound, which this is one of my favorite points in all of 97.
Nice time lapse.
Yeah, did you like that, right?
Yeah.
So here's 17B coming in on the right as you get over the bridge, and then here's the upper part of the village here. The village continues down towards the river and down to the railroad tracks, and that's where we're going to go in this video.
Yeah, an example of a non-freeway grade separation there, that 17B climbs a ramp up to meet that traffic signal there, whereas the road it's on otherwise actually passes underneath that bridge.
Yeah, and you can kind of tell by the architecture of the main street here that we're about to cross here. I mean, this is basically
it's an old river town.
Yeah, old river town, old rail town. This was a popular stop.
They do have a theater though.
Callicoon Rail Depot, and you'll notice they do have 2 tracks there. So they have retained the second track in some places because they do still need it selectively in order to have trains pass each other. They just don't need it continuously.
Right.
Yeah,
PA is that.
Yeah, PH.
Yeah.
The space between the letters. And look, an interstate shield.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, this video was done several years ago, but the picture that I put up in the slideshow was from October, so that this particular sign has managed to stick around for a while. And then I'll show you real quick the other direction here as we go back into Callicoon from Pennsylvania.
It was so nice for Roadway West to take us on a drive to Pennsylvania.
Yes,
Pursue your happiness.
Yes, everybody's favorite state, right?
Smile, you're in Pennsylvania. Frown, you're going to be entering New York.
Yeah, I think for some people they would be displaying angry faces.
Yeah.
At the thought of entering Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone.
No, it's not.
Lower Main Street.
Here's the Western Hotel since 1852. That's what it says on the marquee there.
Yeah. It looks it. Just with that
Even though it
architecture.
really isn't very Western, it's just,
It's Western as far as New York is concerned.
No, this is not Western New York, though. So no, it's not.
Well, Western Sullivan County, New York.
Yeah, there you go.
Western architecture, someone trying to, be gimmicky about it. It's fine, though. It's a good-looking building, anyway. Now, here we do not have a railroad crossing. We have an underpass.
Yeah, the single-lane underpass with a blind curve thrown in there.
Those are fun.
Yeah. I'm going to skip all this BS. You don't need to see that. This is what's basically left of the old village of Coshecton, which used to be significantly larger than it is today, but there's still a little bit of a presence here. I think there's a post office over on the right side. I think they still
Well, there was a general store over there, although I don't know if it's still operational.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still general.
Caution, caution!
Hey, look, it's a bridge.
Hooray!
And then when we reach the other side, we're on PA Route 371.
Yep, and PA Route 371, that will take you out to around Herrick Center and Route 171, so basically north of Carbondale.
Oh, okay.
Another example of a bridge I personally have only ever crossed at night. I have a habit of making my way back from Pennsylvania after dark because, I go there during short daylight times of the year.
So that was the Coshecton Bridge. Here's the Skinner's Falls Bridge. This video was done several years ago when it was still drivable. Obviously, you can't do this today, but this does kind of show you what it used to be like to drive. I think this video was done about 7 or 8 years ago.
And someone was asking before if this is steamed hams country, but I think it's previously been established that's more of an Albany thing.
Steamed ham
Whereas
country.
actual steamed hamburgers are from around Meriden, Connecticut. A place called Ted's makes steamed cheeseburgers.
There's a place called Ted's in Western New York that makes halfway decent hot dogs.
Yeah, different Ted's though.
Different Ted's?
And different
And Merediths are actually steamed, not grilled.
Yeah. Despite the fact that they're obviously grilled.
Yeah, so as you'll see as we cross this bridge, the weight limit several years back was 4 tons. So they...
That's about as low as the limbo bar goes on that.
Yeah.
I think I've seen 3 tons somewhere, but
I've seen 3 tons. Not really anything less than 3 tons. Nor have I seen Aurora Borealis on this bridge, because that's limited to Seymour Skinner's kitchen.
yes. Right. Well, you can also see they got an extra set of planks on the where the tire treads would go. I mean, that may or may not be a more modern thing, because you would have had reason to do that even when you were pulling carriages over that thing.
Yeah. I want to pause this video of the Narrowsburg Bridge real quick so that everybody can gawk at the old signs, which I'm sure have been replaced over the years.
Very faded 650 there. Well,
Everyone's got an ooh and ah.
Yep. Yeah, there was still a good amount of old stuff around this part of Sullivan County several years back. I think most of it's been replaced.
Yeah, when I noticed, and I made it as far south as the Tustin Stone Arch Bridge, which is actually over the 10-mile river, not too far from where it meets the Delaware River. But when I was down in July, most of the old signs, had been replaced. I think there was a couple of old Route 97 shields still floating around.
right. All right. But so the Stone Arch Bridge is publicly accessible.
Stone Arch Bridge, there's 2. Actually, there's 3 in western Sullivan County, which are accessible. There's the Tustin Stone Arch Bridge, which is close to the Delaware River. There's the Hankins Stone Arch Bridge, which is further north in Sullivan County. It is I want to say it's north of Callicoon.
Right. Well, the reason I bring this up is because the roadway that leads to the camp by the Tustin Rail Bridge continues past the Stone Arch Bridge, so there becomes a question of, well, okay, at what point does that become private property? How far can you actually go?
Right, it's there's a Boy Scout camp, a 10-mile river Boy Scout camp in that area, and I think they actually allow people to visit the Stone Arch Bridge.
All right, but you're not supposed to go past the Stone Arch Bridge, though, so then you therefore can't get a view of the rail bridge that way without trespassing.
Right, I believe so. I haven't really looked into that aspect.
Okay. Well, here's your overhead welcome to Pennsylvania sign, by the way. I think we mentioned before.
Let's take a second to stare at that, because there aren't that many of those in the wild left.
Yeah, and so the ground-mounted welcome sign seen in the background here has since been replaced with the Pursue Your Happiness version, but
right.
The overhead sign is still there.
Yeah, they obviously were still very unhappy about entering Pennsylvania at that time.
Were they angry about it?
Well, they might still be angry about it, but at least now they want you to pursue your happiness instead of your angriness.
Right.
Get rid of your angriness. Maybe.
Yeah, so
Pursue your happiness by driving to another state where you pay less money. Where you can pay less money in gas.
By driving through a bathtub.
Yep.
Yeah, like you weren't able to do this in 1850 because it was full of water, but nowadays you can.
You might have been able to do it with a primitive submarine.
Yeah, I think there might have been like U-boats in the D&H Canal during World War I. I'm not sure about that, but so anyway, next up is Berryville. I always have liked this overpass that the railroad crosses over 434 at this point. It's more visible in the other direction, but there's a nice Erie Railroad stamp on the side of it. You can't really see it that well in this direction, but in the other direction, there's a more clear version of it.
Yeah, well, you can still see it there, sort of. But
And now this here you can actually notice how the bridge curves.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, usually the point, the the easiest way to build a bridge is on a straight line between the two abutments. But here they had to improvise a little bit. As you can see at the end here, Route 55 continues straight and it's multiplexed with a county route, and that's because this section of the state highway is county maintained.
And if you're driving around like Route 55 or Route 52, you might, in Sullivan County, you might see an NY, on top of the like the Route 55 signs in certain places still.
Yeah, I do remember seeing a few of those.
Sullivan County does that, yeah.
Like, how old is that generation of sign?
I think that would have, that generation of sign, like the state was posting them, into the early 60s.
Wow.
Right. Well, so when the state was posting them, though, they had a white border. The NY with the black border, that's Sullivan County specifically.
So we'll show you a few videos here at Pond Eddy. This is the old bridge that was replaced.
From before they put the yellow markers up.
Yeah. And basically, you're driving it basically at a walk. So if this was a covered bridge, you'd be good.
Yeah, I don't think, they would pull me over if I was driving faster than a walk. But I don't think I had to worry about that on this one. And here's the other direction of the old bridge. You cannot do this drive anymore. It is just, the old bridge is only preserved now in pictures and video.
And memories.
Yep.
Yeah, we had there was a road meet that was hosted, basically in February of 2009. And the Pond Eddy Bridge is actually where we had the meet photo.
Okay. Entering Shahola Township, Pennsylvania. Enter at your own risk. All right, here's the new bridge. It's a little wider than the old bridge, at least it feels that way. And there's a nice sidewalk on our right as we go across back towards New York. Doug, what are you working on with the podcast and the blog side of Gribble Nation right now?
Okay. So basically right now on the blog side, I am actually working on a few articles. The one that I'm probably going to post first is for the Bridge of the Gods, which actually crosses over the Columbia River, in the Cascades, in that Columbia River Gorge area.
Mm-hmm.
A bit of a story behind that name.
There is, because there was a, in folklore, there was a story behind that, and there was also a geologic event where there was actually a landslide that actually caused the Columbia River to basically be dammed for about 180 miles.
Wow.
And then, of course, eventually, probably through like an earthquake or something like that, basically the river broke through, and actually that is how the Cascades got the name of Cascades, because of because it was cascading, basically during the when like Lewis and Clark went through or what have you.
Yeah, well,
of course, now there's the Bonneville Dam a little bit
go.
downstream, so it's so you don't even notice that anymore.
But
the Bonneville Dam, that actually is interesting, and if you want to see something neat, you see all the fish ladders where all the fish are, trying to swim up the Columbia River.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then on the podcast side, we have there is a number of ideas floating around. I want to actually do some things, talking about, let's say, like road trip experiences, or like places we like to go and like stop to like eat or like during road trips. And then of course I also have some things that like I might be talking more about states or like certain like drives or certain roads to go on. So there's a lot of directions that I can go with that. But I think in time you'll see where I'm still developing.
There's 6 Mile 400 right there.
Yeah. Still developing my style for the podcast. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I do think that we are kind of trying to find ourselves and figure out what we want to do and what we like and what we don't like. Obviously we have different options as far as how we want to record and what we want to record. So
yeah,
I think it's going to be interesting to see how we evolve as presenters in the podcasting realm.
And we'll be bringing guests on from time to time, and some of them might be some of the people who have been guests in some of the Birdway Whiz live streams, and some other people as well.
Yeah, I know we are going to try to work some people into a rotation for that. That should be fun. One other thing that I had an idea about, Doug, we're just, by the way, watching a video of US 209 through Matamoros and Port Jervis right now. The other idea that I had, Doug, was like a follow-up Gribble Nation roundtable. Because we did the one last year on my channel with the four of us, even though I wasn't a part of your team officially yet at that point. But
right.
That might be something worth considering as a podcast episode. Because I'm sure the four of us could kind of sit around and kill some time talking about a variety of different subjects.
Yeah.
Be nice.
And then another thing is, and I think we're basically, you can actually, because the podcast is powered through a website, Anchor FM, and they actually have a phone app where you can record the podcast through your phone. So let's say if you're on like a long road trip, you can actually record short updates for that podcast, kind of like a live blog in a sense.
Yeah, I was thinking like that would be a cool thing to do if like I go on a week-long trip or something, just record a 2 or 3 minute summary of each day and then kind of lump all that into a single episode. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, because sometimes with like your observations, they're more fresh, like after a day or two, as opposed to like a few weeks or months, right. Or in my case, even more than a decade with some of these things that I'm going back into
the marks and bridges.
Yeah, we are going back. Yeah, some of us are going to go back into the Wayback Machine for some of our posts, but
and with the Erie, you have the was it the Erie Round Table around here, or Roundhouse, or what have you?
Yeah, I think up above on that overpass, or somewhere right near there. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last time I was in Port Jervis, I actually found there was a park nearby. It's called like the Charles Brock's Elks Park or something like that. And you can go up. There's some hiking trails. We can even drive up, and you get a nice view of Port Jervis and the valley. You can see the High Point, New Jersey from there as well. And that's something neat to check out. If you're in Port Jervis.
Yeah. Yeah, the High Point's not that far from
yeah.
There. So that would be
Erie Turntable. That's what it was. I was trying to think of the name of it.
Yeah,
right.
I'm not really that knowledgeable on the railroad end.
Right. In railroad terms, it's a turntable on a roundhouse.
Right. I knew it was something along those lines, but I'm not as familiar with railroads as I am with roads and canals.
Yeah, I knew what you were talking about though.
Right.
I just couldn't remember the exact term myself. So that's it. We just took a drive over each of the bridges that we covered in the PowerPoint. So I think we're going to start to close up shop here for the day.
Any closing questions that anyone has?
Yeah, if anybody's got anything last minute they want to address, now's a good time to throw it in the chat. But I really want to thank Doug from Gribble Nation for joining us today. Also, Anthony from the AA Roads Forum and Stamford, Connecticut for helping guide us on our first part of our journey down the Delaware River to explore all of these bridges. It was a lot of fun having them with us, and a lot of fun having you guys too in the live chat. So thank you to all of you who tuned in. I would say we didn't do half bad on this episode, so I'm more optimistic about next week. I'm not as terrified of next week now that we got this one out of the way.
Right, because I think this was the part where there isn't as much information about the Upper Delaware River bridges, as opposed to some of the other Delaware bridges further downstream.
Right.
Don't be afraid of bridges.
No, I'm just afraid about talking about them. There's just so many of them to try to keep straight, and it can be a bit of a challenge.
Delaware River has
or in the case of the Berryville Shahola one, keep curved.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so we're gonna part ways at this point. Be sure to check out all of our stuff on GribbleNation.org. Also check out the Gribble Nation Roadcast. There's some great episodes up there already. There's an episode about Gribble Nation's 20th anniversary up there, so you can check that out.
And of course, also keep on checking all the new material that's coming through on Roadway Wiz.
That's right, yeah. So we finished up St. Louis today. We got some stuff in the Memphis area next week, and then before you know it, we're going to be exploring Vermont. So there's going to be a lot of new material coming out.
And
Vermonting, yeah. Gotta love Vermonting. But from all of us here on Skype and all of you guys in the live chat, thank you again for watching. Be sure to catch our next episode of Delaware River Bridges next Sunday, and we'll talk to you then.